Loyka is a small country with an economy that is 45% primary sector, 15% secondary sector, and 40% tertiary sector. Sadly, from 2006 to 2008, Loyka was torn by a civil war. By the time the fighting came to an end, a new coalition government was established. However, the situation was fragile and far from repair. By 2009, the United World Peace decided to step in by sending 4,000 peacekeepers to Loyka to prevent the eruption of further violence. The troops, known as the Olive Hats, had a specific objective to accomplish: to create stability and maintain order, peace, and security. During the first years, the mission experienced some successes but also some failures. On the one hand, the Olive Hats provided a sense of stability and international support. They also invested in the local economy and helped to repair the infrastructure damaged during the Civil War. On the other hand, however, their presence began to be resented by locals since ultimately they were considered as foreigners and were being accused of inappropriate behavior. Therefore, their reputation began to steadily deteriorate. With this in mind, there are some major organizational behavioral problems that should be highlighted and will be further evaluated. First, the United World Peace leadership and organizational structure and style was unsuitable for the current needs of the community. Second, there was a lack of motivation of the troops to fulfill the overall mission as Loyka's community began to reject them. In light of the situation in Loyka in 2009, the United World Peace appointed autocratic leader General Ron Mieri as the mission's commander. An autocratic leadership is one where a leader takes all the decisions, very limited information is shared across levels, and there's only one-way communication. This type of leadership was appropriate for the initial phases of the operation, as the country was extremely vulnerable and in a serious state of instability. Loyka was in need of fast and decisive decision-making to prevent any further damage. As time passed, the United World Peace troops suffered difficulties as sentiments of mistrust and resentment grew among locals because they were not being included in any communication or decision-making. As a result of this, troops became hugely demotivated to fulfill their tasks. By 2011, General Mieri was replaced by General Diane Pierce. She was given two specific tasks to accomplish. These were: first, to improve the overall image of the Olive Hats, the troops, which consequently would revive public relations and reduce conflict with the locals. Second, to re-motivate the troops by means of non-financial methods. As the community progressively recovers, there is a latent need to identify a new style of leadership where local government and officials can participate when necessary. In this case, a situational leadership seems to be more suitable. It is also important to understand the current organizational structure of the mission, which was tall and centralized with several levels of hierarchy. By having this type of structure, the commander ensured orders were clearly understood and always followed. This was surely necessary at the beginning, given Loyka's unstable situation. In this type of organizational structure, there are long chains of command. The larger the organization, the more complex and the slower the movement of information between layers. Therefore, it takes longer for information to be relayed across different rankings. As communications pass from manager to subordinate, the message may also become filtered or distorted. This type of structure is well adapted to the military environment because the quality of performance and discipline improves through close supervision, and superior and subordinate relationships are easily managed. With this in mind, General Pierce's new leadership style should include local officials at a tall level in order to facilitate communication strategies. Let's also analyze how the organizational culture affected the performance of the troops. Its military nature is an example of power culture, where power and control is concentrated among a few people. Here we're going to use Hofstede's 5 dimensions of a culture to better understand the organization's behavior. First, the Olive Hats appear to have a high power distance dimension, as decisions are centralized. Second, the organization is collectivist versus individualist, in that all 4,000 troops feel as they are a part of a group and engage as one, yet it's perceived differently by locals as they seem to be detached from the soldiers. Next, there's a high masculinity dimension of culture, as traditionally armies and troops have a masculine connotation. there is also a high uncertainty avoidance dimension of culture due to its formal structure with specific rules and regulations and low tolerance for risk. Finally, there's long-term orientation dimension of culture because the organization is investing in the long-term stability and well-being of the country. Taking into account the current relationships, leadership must reassess the necessary time it will take for the community to return to a safe and healthy governance before there's another flare-up. Due to the leadership style, the organizational structure and culture, plus the locals' disapproval, the troops were clearly demotivated. In this case, we're going to analyze Adams' inequity theory in order to understand the reasons behind their lack of motivation. This theory states that people are motivated when they perceive they are being treated fairly. We have observed the troops deliver more positive inputs in compared to what they get in return. Above all, the group exerted tremendous effort and commitment to repair the society and infrastructure after the war. Also, their mere presence in Loyka supported local businesses as their provisions were sourced from locals, and they spent the majority of their pay in the local economy. Unfortunately, on the other hand, the outputs were not as positive as the inputs. The mission's leadership and troops faced strong disagreements with the local government. Additionally, the increasing disapproval of the community led to violent actions against them. To dive deeper into our analysis of the troops' demotivation, we are going to use Herzberg's two-factor theory. According to Herzberg, there are two factors that are associated with motivating people. These are hygiene or maintenance factors and the actual motivating factors known as motivators. The organization in itself satisfied the troops' hygiene motivators, those which help to remove the dissatisfaction of a job instead of increasing it. Nonetheless, the motivating factors, those that increase job satisfaction and motivation levels through recognition, responsibility, and praise, were extremely lacking. Moving along, this could also be reflected when applying the Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. The troops' physiological and security needs, such as the financial security, health, and employment security, were fulfilled and therefore removed the dissatisfaction of the job. However, needs at the higher end of the pyramid, such as social needs, esteem needs, and self-actualization, were missing and therefore not satisfied. There wasn't a sense of belonging to Loyka's community, and vice versa, the community felt distrust and disrespect towards the soldiers. Evidently, this caused negligence in the troops and prevented them from reaching their full potential. All things considered, something had to change. Since extrinsic motivating factors such as salaries could not be altered, General Pierce proposed to build either a new hospital or a new university campus. This was intended to re-establish the relationship with the community and empower the troops with new tasks. In this way, General Pierce is able to boost the troops' motivation intrinsically by giving them a sense of achievement while involving them in more challenging and fulfilling tasks. Or in other words, by means of job enrichment, while simultaneously improving the mission's image among Loyka's population. In conclusion, hey guys, get over here!